Sunday dinner in Boise. The sky outside was soft with that kind of winter light that feels tired before it even begins. Amber lit candles like she always did, thinking they'd make everything feel warmer, feel intentional. Her word, not mine. Jake was already at the table, earbuds dangling from one ear, his phone balanced on one knee like it was the only thing keeping him alive. The lasagna steamed in the middle of the table, garlic bread stacked beside it like bricks. I'd grilled the meat myself, Amber had layered the pasta. One of the few things we still did together, if you could call it that. Jake didn't say grace, didn't wait for anyone. He shoveled in a forkful and kept scrolling. Amber asked him how his week was. He grunted. She smiled. I poured a glass of water, adjusted my napkin, and made the mistake of trying to make conversation. Did you finish that scholarship essay? The one for Boise State? Jake didn't look up, didn't even pause. Just said, flatly, I don't need your help. I'll figure it out. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he added, still looking at his phone, still chewing, you're just background. We live, you pay. That was the moment. Amber chuckled. Not loudly, not cruelly, just enough to wound. She reached for her wine glass, clinked it against the plate as she lifted it, and said, don't take it personally. That's the part that stuck. Not his words, hers. The way she brushed it off like it was a joke. Like it didn't mean anything. Like I didn't mean anything. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't feel something. I felt everything. It rushed up in my chest like a tide you know is going to flood the whole room but can't stop from coming. But I didn't say a word. I just nodded, picked up another bite of lasagna, and chewed. Tasted like salt and metal and years I couldn't get back. When dinner ended, I cleared the plates. Nobody thanked me. Amber was already curled on the couch, a blanket pulled over her legs, watching something with fake laughter. Jake had vanished upstairs, probably gaming, probably texting someone I'd never meet in a world I wasn't welcome in. I went to the office, closed the door, and started disconnecting, not out of rage. There was no screaming, no threats, just stillness. I clicked into each account like I was clocking into a job I no longer needed. One by one. Boise High School tuition payment. Paused. Medical coverage. Terminated. Cell phones? Mine were separate, always had been. But the family plan? Gone. Utility bills? Cancelled the auto drafts. Signed the account permissions over to Amber. Let her see what electricity costs when nobody else is shielding her from the truth. It took me 23 minutes to disappear. Not physically. Not yet. Just financially. Logistically. Legally. I erased myself from the infrastructure of their lives. And they didn't even notice. The next morning I made coffee same way I always had, black, 2 sugars. I left the pot full. Amber never drank it. She preferred that cold brew concentrate that came in glass bottles with cursive writing like marketing made it real. I sat in the kitchen with my mug, listened to the upstairs pipes groan as Jake got ready, and waited. Waited for someone to say something. Nobody did. They left like they always did, Amber to work, Jake to school. I didn't even get a glance. That's when I understood it. They weren't being cruel. Not really. Cruelty takes effort. They didn't hate me. They didn't love me. I was just there. Like drywall. Like the fridge. Like the deadbolt they locked without thinking. I'd been useful. And now I was unnecessary. I spent that day at work in a fog. The numbers blurred on the spreadsheet. Phone calls came in and I answered them. But my voice felt hollow in my throat. I sold a townhouse in Meridian to a couple moving from Oregon. They asked me if I had kids. I hesitated. Said, sort of. What else could I say? You don't explain to strangers that you've raised a boy for 10 years who doesn't see you as more than a walking ATM. You don't explain that your wife laughed when he told you you were background. You don't say those things out loud unless you're ready for people to look at you like something broke inside you. And something had. That night I sat in the garage. Alone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the shelves lined with tools I'd bought to fix a family that didn't want fixing. Every birthday I'd organized. Every soccer game I'd driven to. Every bill I'd paid without question. Every damn sacrifice. And for what? Amber and I met 12 years ago. She was fierce back then. Smart. The kind of woman who made you feel like she was always 2 steps ahead. Not cruel, just sharp. Jake was 5. His dad had skipped town. Some story about Denver, some vague promise to call. I stepped in slowly. Bought them groceries when she was short. Offered to fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen. I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I just wanted to help. And somewhere along the way, helping turned into carrying. I paid for the wedding. Paid off her old credit card debt. Took on the mortgage when we moved into this house. Jake started calling me Mike when he was 8. Never Dad. I didn't push. I thought I could earn it. Thought that love was a verb and verbs meant action. So I kept doing. Every Christmas. Every scraped knee. Every forgotten lunch run to the school. Until I became invisible. Until the help I gave became the only thing about me that mattered. When I think back to that dinner now, I don't remember what Jake was wearing. I don't remember how Amber did her hair. I just remember the weight of those words. You're just background. He said it like it was obvious. Like it wasn't cruel, just honest. That's what made it unforgivable. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't a scream. It was a simple, calm truth he believed with his whole chest. We live. You pay. And the woman I married, the woman I built a life for, laughed. I didn't leave that night. Not physically. I wasn't ready. Not yet. But I stopped answering questions. I stopped offering help. When Amber asked if I'd seen her keys, I just shrugged. When Jake asked if the internet was lagging, I said, not my problem. They didn't notice the change. Not at first. But the quiet started to stretch. Longer and longer. A week later, the power bill came due and the lights flickered at 10 p.m. Jake stomped into the hallway. Wi-Fi's down, he barked. What's going on? Amber called out from the kitchen. Is the bill paid? I didn't move. Didn't say a word. Jake came down the stairs, phone in hand. Did you forget to pay it? I looked him dead in the eye. Calm. Measured. No. What do you mean no? I mean it's not my responsibility anymore. Amber froze mid-step. Mike. I'm background, I said. Remember. Jake blinked. Confused. The words finally circling back to him like a storm he hadn't expected to return. Amber's jaw tensed. That was a joke. No, I said. It was the truth. And now you get to live in it. I went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and let them sit in the dark. 2 days later, Amber tried to fix it. Made my favorite dinner. Sat beside me on the couch. Her hand on my knee. I know things have been tense. I said nothing. She tried again. Jake's just a teenager. They say stupid things. Do they? I asked. You've been in his life for 10 years. He knows you're his. Not his dad. I cut in. Just background. Her silence was confirmation. I stood up, went to the kitchen, opened the cabinet where the important documents were kept. Pulled out the deed. My name only. The insurance papers. My name. The utilities. My card. I placed them on the table. Neat. Clean. Final. Now you know what background looks like, I said, and I left the room. The week after that dinner passed like molasses poured over broken glass. Slow, sharp, and sickly sweet with fake normalcy. Amber acted like nothing had happened. She made toast in the mornings. Left little notes on the fridge. Call plumber. Pick up more eggs. Jake stomped around like the floor owed him something, slamming cabinets and blaming lag every time the Wi-Fi cut out, which it now did often. Not because of outages, but because I'd taken the router off autopay. I let the service lapse like a broken promise. No warning, just silence. They noticed, finally, but no one asked me why. That's how I knew they hadn't understood a thing. They still thought I was just upset, sulking, waiting to be coaxed back into their story like a background character who wandered off script. They didn't understand I was already gone. I'd vanished in the only way that mattered, the way that made the lights stay on, the water run clear, the tuition get paid. I wasn't punishing them. I was accepting the truth. I didn't belong to them, and they didn't belong to me. Amber had stopped saying goodnight. Jake didn't even grunt when I walked in. I lived in that house like a ghost. A well-fed, well-dressed, well-excluded ghost. I began collecting pieces of myself. Quietly, methodically, I took my name off the backup contact list at Jake's school. Called the front office myself, told them to remove me from all alerts. No more calls about absences. No more emails about overdue assignments. I was no longer the fallback parent. Let his mother answer for him. Let his father rise from the ashes and pretend he cared. Amber never noticed the emails stopped. Jake didn't either. I boxed up the files in my office, the receipts, the tax documents, the letters from colleges I had helped him apply to. I didn't shred them. I didn't burn them. I just put them in the attic under a thin layer of dust and a thicker layer of finality. Then I started with the finances. Amber had always depended on me for the tedious things. Health insurance, cell phone bills, the cable package nobody used but everyone complained about. I'd made it easy, one password, one account, one man juggling everything so nobody else had to think. So nobody else had to carry weight. I changed the passwords, logged out every shared device, removed her fingerprint from the banking apps, closed the joint credit card we'd opened in 2017, the one I used to pay for Jake's braces. Let her open her own. Let her see what interest looks like without a husband to clear the balance every month. She didn't say a word. Maybe she didn't know yet. Maybe she was too proud to admit she was locked out of the vault she'd depended on for 10 years. Or maybe, and this is the darker thought that crawled through me at night, maybe she'd never actually looked at the balance. Maybe she just assumed money flowed the way water does, always there until the tap runs dry. Well, the tap was running dry, and I was the one turning the valve. On Thursday, she went out with friends. Girls' night. Wine and stories and jokes that made me into a caricature. I didn't have to be there to know. I'd been the punchline before. Jake ordered a pizza with my old card. It declined. I know because I got the fraud alert. Still pinged my phone. I let him see what it felt like to want something and be denied. To reach for a comfort you assumed would always be there, and come back empty. He didn't say anything. Not to me. But I heard him on the phone later that night, voice low, pacing in his room. Mom, the card didn't work. I don't know, it just got declined. Can you ask Mike? No, I didn't do anything. Jesus, why do you always assume it's my fault? Pause. Another pause. Then, I didn't say anything to him. Not really. Liar. That Friday, Amber asked if I'd look at the furnace. Said it was acting up again, blowing cold air through the upstairs vents. She handed me the manual like a peace offering. I looked her in the eyes and said, "Call a technician." She blinked. "You've always handled it." "Not anymore." Her mouth opened, then shut. She set the manual down slowly, like it might explode. She left it on the counter for 2 days. Then she called someone. They charged her $150 just to look at it. She paid in cash. I know because she asked if I had any to cover her. I didn't answer, just walked out of the room. The cold air stayed. So did the silence. I started spending more time at the office. Stayed late even when I didn't need to. Took extra clients. Ate lunch alone at the same diner, 3 booths from the back, where the waitress didn't ask questions and never brought me the check until I asked for it. One night, near closing, she slid into the booth across from me and said, "You always look like you're thinking about leaving." I didn't look up, just said, "I already did." She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. There are men like me in every town. Men who gave too much to families that never knew how to say thank you. We vanish in pieces. First from the table, then from the calendar, then from the conversation, until all that's left of us is the credit card on file and the furnace that still works. Or used to. Saturday came. Amber was in the garage, digging for a box of Christmas lights she swore we still had. Jake was upstairs, yelling into his headset. Some online match that required him to scream into the void and blame lag for his failure. I stood in the kitchen, looked at the glass cabinets. The fridge covered in magnets from trips I'd paid for but was never in a single picture. Jake hated photos. Amber said it was just a phase. I never pressed. But looking at that fridge, I saw the truth. I wasn't in their memories, just in their bank statements. I reached for the envelope I'd prepped 3 days earlier. Printed documents, account closures, asset transfers, a typed note, no signature, just a sentence. You said I was background, so I faded out. I placed it on the island. Then I picked up my duffel bag and left. I didn't slam the door, didn't announce it, just turned the knob, stepped into the December cold, and drove away. I didn't check my phone for hours. Drove east, just kept driving. Fields turned to fog. Fog turned to city lights. I booked a cheap hotel outside Twin Falls. Ate a gas station sandwich in bed. Slept better than I had in months. When I woke up, there were 5 missed calls. 3 from Amber, 2 from Jake. No voicemails, no texts. I didn't call back. Let them feel it. Let them sit in the echo of my absence. The next day, a neighbor texted me a photo. Amber and Jake on the porch. Confused. Angry. The door open behind them. The envelope still on the counter. The caption was simple. Everything okay over there? I typed back. Better than ever. Then I deleted her number. You learn a lot in the quiet. How long it takes a family to notice the scaffolding is gone. How many days they can live on autopilot before the cracks show. How often they call for help only after they've burned every bridge. They didn't call me again that week. Not once. They were waiting, expecting me to come crawling back. To apologize for leaving without a warning. To be the bigger man again. But I was done being a man in their house. I was building a new one. For me. And this time, there'd be no room for tenants who paid in disrespect. The photo arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, sent by a neighbor who'd always smiled too hard and asked too many questions. I was sitting alone in a rented room, stale carpet, thin walls, the kind of place where your thoughts echo back at you whether you want them to or not. The message had no words, just the image. Amber, smiling, too wide, too rehearsed. She stood outside the county courthouse, white dress clinging to her like a costume bought in a rush. Next to her was a man I recognized instantly, even though we'd never met. Dylan, the spark, the reason I'd been called dull. He wore a rented suit that didn't quite fit and sunglasses that belonged to a better life than his own. His arm wrapped around her waist like he'd won something. The caption read, "Real love wins." I stared at it for a long time. No anger came, no jealousy, just clarity. The kind that settles in after the storm has already passed and you realize the house was empty long before the roof caved in. This was never about me leaving. This had been waiting to happen. I just stopped standing in the way. I saved the photo, not out of spite, out of confirmation, because now everything made sense. The late nights, the sudden need for space, the way she'd looked through me like she was already gone. Dylan wasn't a surprise. He was a plan. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I opened my laptop. Over the years, I'd learned a lot about people like Dylan. Men who talk big, promise fast, and live on borrowed time. I'd worked in real estate long enough to know how to follow paper trails. So I did. Quietly, methodically, credit reports, public records, civil filings. It didn't take long. Debt stacked like bodies. Lawsuits quietly settled or conveniently ignored. A startup that existed only in Instagram captions and Canva logos. 3 imaginary investors. 0 income. A leased Mustang paid for by someone else's optimism. He was exactly who I thought he was. And I didn't send a single word of it to Amber. That was important. I sent it to people who understood pressure. Her Aunt Marlene, the family truth teller. The one Amber used to call toxic, because Marlene didn't know how to lie politely, and an old coworker of Amber's, a woman who once called me, "the brick wall they'll crash into," said it like a joke. It wasn't. I attached everything. Numbers, screenshots, dates. Then I waited. The wedding was supposed to be small, intimate. That's what I heard later. Friends, family, a quick ceremony, then drinks. A soft landing into a new life built on borrowed fantasy. It didn't land softly. According to multiple witnesses, and people are generous with details when things fall apart, The ceremony was already underway when Marlene stood up. Mid-vows. No shouting. Just cleared her throat and asked a question. How much debt did you say you had again, Dylan? Silence. The bad kind. Then she read it. All of it. Numbers first. Then the lawsuits. Then the investors who didn't exist. She read like she was reciting weather data. Calm. Precise. Unforgiving. Dylan didn't argue. He ran. Straight down the aisle. Out the side door. Gone. Amber didn't move. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just stood there. Frozen. Holding flowers that suddenly looked ridiculous. No applause. No comfort. Just the sound of chairs shifting and people realizing they'd dressed up for a lie. Someone later said Amber kept whispering my name. Like it was a curse. Like it was an answer. She called me that night. 6 times. I didn't pick up. The 7th call I answered. You ruined everything. She screamed. Voice cracking. Unraveling. You set him up. I waited until she finished. Then I spoke. No, I said. I just made space for the truth. She sobbed. Accused. Begged. Threatened. I said nothing else. I didn't need to. The story was over. And for the first time, I wasn't part of the wreckage. I was standing outside it. Watching. Breathing. Free. She found me at the diner. The one near the edge of town, with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tastes like regret. I went there every morning. Same corner seat, same eggs and toast, same waitress who never asked where I came from or why my eyes looked older than my face. Peace lived in the quiet clink of forks and the low hum of other people's mornings. It was my silence. Mine. But that day, peace had a price. She walked in just after 9. Hair tangled. Makeup smudged. Jacket buttoned wrong like she dressed in a moving car. I saw her before she saw me. She scanned the room like she expected me to disappear. I didn't. I watched her find me. She crossed the room without a word. Sat down hard. Her hands shook. You didn't even try to stop me, she said. Her voice was a whisper trying to pretend it still mattered. I didn't answer. You just let me walk away. Still nothing. She leaned forward, fingers gripping the edge of the table like it was the only solid thing left in her world. You didn't say a word. Not a warning. Not even a fight. What kind of man does that? I looked her in the eyes, calm as winter. The kind of man who knows he's already been replaced. She flinched. Just barely. I reached into my bag. Pulled out the folder I'd carried for 3 days but hadn't needed. Until now. Inside, the paperwork. Sale of the house. Finalized. Closed. $312,000. Net proceeds in an account she couldn't access. My name only. My signature. I placed it on the table. She stared at it like it was a weapon. I thought you hated that house, I said. You called it a prison box. She said nothing. Now it's gone. And you don't own a brick of it. She opened the folder with trembling hands. Skimmed. Flipped pages. Stopped. This is everything, she whispered. You sold everything. No, I said. I kept everything that was mine. I just took it with me. She looked up then. Something behind her eyes broke. Not sadness. Not yet. Just the realization that the world she stood on was already ashes. And the man who held the structure together had stopped pretending it was worth saving. 3 days passed. She didn't call again. Didn't show up at the diner. But then came the text. Simple. Unpunctuated. Why does the house feel so empty? Not about the furniture. Not about the stuff. About the silence. Because silence, real silence, has a weight. A gravity. Presses on you when no one is answering your questions. Paying your bills. Carrying your burdens. When there's no one left to perform for, to blame, to lean on. That's what I left behind. Not noise. Not anger. Just absence. I didn't reply. That was the point. The next morning, she tried a different tactic. Called from a different number. This time, she left a voicemail. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said. I was stupid. I see that now. Jake misses you. A pause. He doesn't say it, but he does. He asks if you're coming back. I listened to the whole thing. Deleted it. Because here's the truth they never say out loud. Most apologies aren't for the person they wronged. They're for the one who needs rescuing. She didn't miss me. She missed the safety, the structure, the quiet confidence that every crisis would be met by a man who didn't flinch. She missed the invisible labor of love that kept her world spinning without asking for applause. Jake didn't miss me. He missed the roof over his head and the card that never declined. They weren't mourning me. They were mourning the version of themselves they could only afford when I was footing the bill. I'd moved north by then. Tacoma, Washington. A friend had offered me work, not flashy, but honest. A lakeside office. Nothing but windows and water. I rented a small place on the edge of town. 2 bedrooms. No shared accounts. No framed photos of people who only smiled for the camera. In the mornings, I brewed my coffee slowly. Let it steep. Sat on the porch with a blanket and watched the mist lift off the lake like the sky was learning how to breathe again. The air was cold, but it didn't bite. It just reminded me I was alive. No shouting. No slamming doors. No dinner tables filled with silent contempt. Just the soft hum of a life I didn't have to beg to be part of. Weeks passed. The text slowed. The calls stopped. But then came the letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name. The handwriting was hers. Inside. I lied. I did love you. I just didn't know how. I thought you'd always be there. You were always there. Until you weren't. And now I see what I was standing on. You were the whole damn floor. I'm sorry. I hope that matters. I folded it once. Slid it into the drawer beside the coffee filters. Didn't throw it away. Didn't reread it. Because it didn't change anything. Some things come too late. Some losses you don't mourn. You endure them. You learn from them. You walk forward because going back would mean forgetting the pain you crawled through to get free. And freedom? It's quiet. Not like revenge. Revenge is loud. It burns. It wants applause. But freedom? Freedom doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to be felt. Like breath in clean air. Like peace where chaos used to live. Like silence where your name used to be dragged through every fight. One day, I drove past a playground. Stopped. Watched the kids run. Parents trailing behind. Phone in hand. Distracted and tired. One kid fell. Cried. His father scooped him up. Held him. And I thought about Jake. About the bike I taught him to ride. About the time I stayed up all night helping him build a volcano for science class. About the birthdays I planned when his real dad forgot the dates. I gave him a father, and when he was old enough to speak with cruelty, he threw it back like garbage. You're just background. We live, you pay. He thought those words would bounce off. He didn't know they were the last ones he'd ever say to the version of me that still cared. I saw Amber one last time. Not in person. On a screen. A mutual friend posted a group photo from a fundraiser. There she was, smiling, holding a clipboard, wearing the same earrings I gave her for our 6th anniversary. She looked thinner, tired, the kind of tired that no nap fixes. Jake stood next to her, taller now, still scowling. They looked like a family trying to convince the world they hadn't lost anything. But I saw it in the corners, the shadows under her eyes, the distance in his body, the silence between them. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel pride. I just felt distance and peace. So here's where it ends. A man who gave everything. A boy who didn't understand what was being built for him. A woman who mistook comfort for boredom and chaos for passion. And the silence that followed when the builder walked away. I live in that silence now. Not bitter. Not broken. Just finally still. And I ask you, if you'd been laughed at across your own dinner table, if the child you raised looked you in the eye and said you were nothing, if the woman you loved replaced you before you even left, would you have stayed? Would you have continued to carry them? Or would you have stepped into the quiet and let them hear what life sounds like without you? Tell me, was I wrong? Or was I just done?